Oh, my goodness. I'm Kathy. I'm a compulsive overeater, and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the GreySheet without exception. And I don't eat in between my meals, and I don't eat no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life. And my abstinence date is May 22nd, 1981. And I've never been to anything like this in all my years of GreySheet, and it's just so uplifting and so wonderful. So I live in New York State right now, but I got abstinent in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And hearing other people has just brought so many things back to me. The meeting in Cambridge, the Saturday morning meeting, was part of Overeaters Anonymous. So this is 1981, and it started it's 1977. So the GreySheet meeting in Cambridge had been going on for about 4 years at that point. And there was a very large number of people who were abstinent. And I'm so grateful that it was on the OA meeting sheet. There was no internet at that time, no way to get information. And so I happened to go into this meeting in Cambridge that I'd never been to before. I had been in OA for a couple of years, struggling, trying to figure out what food plan I should do, trying to figure out how come I couldn't get abstinent if I worked on the steps. I just, for me, it just did not work. But I thought, well, I guess I've tried everything else. I guess this is the best it's going to get. And so I was going through periods of binging, gaining weight, then, losing weight again. And I'd been through all of that before. I was just in rooms where, I found out I was a compulsive overeater, which I didn't know before that. So it was February of 1981, and the regular meeting that I went to on this particular night was not happening. And so I said, well, I'll just go into Cambridge. I had never been to Cambridge before, even though I'm from the Boston area. And I got on the subway and I went there and I walked into the meeting. And that was, probably one of the most important days of my life. I didn't get abstinent right away. So my abstinence date of May 22nd, 1981 is the most important date in my life. And so the difference between what I was hearing in OA and what I was hearing in GreySheet was all about, we all do the same food plan. This is the food plan. We're not doing all sorts of different things. And we talk about what abstinence is. And we talk about abstinence being the most important thing. And we do this no matter what, without exception. So the room was full of people who were had a vigorous and positive attitude. The speaker finished speaking and everyone had their hand up, and I was just sitting there going, wow. So I'm very grateful I was willing to really go to GreySheet meetings pretty much from then on, GreySheet OA, and stopped going to the OA meetings where, just weren't helping me. And, it's nice to be in a group of people who understand that I'm a compulsive overeater, but that doesn't help me. That did not help me with my food. And I just could not stop eating. So I might have been able to stop for 3 months. No, I don't think I did that towards the end. I might have been able to stop for maybe a couple of weeks with a little bit of cheating. But I was just waiting until I could go off whatever diet I was on. And then I would go back to the food and I couldn't stop. I'd be off and running. So I remember when I finally got abstinent on the GreySheet and I opened the big book, it started, we had a big book meeting or something, and just really understanding when it described, that even the alcoholic can have periods where they stop if they have enough reason to. So anyway, I was told in GreySheet that I was an alcoholic with food. Thank you. Thank you for giving me that information. So I stayed abstinent. I stayed in that area. I got pregnant with my children. I met my husband. I got married. I got pregnant with my children. There were all face-to-face meetings. They were in person. We didn't know about anything else. And so I remember in 1998 that there was some talk of this group in New York, was creating this different program. I knew that I had what I needed. I was going to meetings where I was hearing the message that I needed. And at that point, I had 17 years of back-to-back GreySheet abstinence. So obviously it worked for me. Somebody mentioned earlier about making a stand for GreySheet. And that made me think about that what GreySheet in the early days and still today, that we are doing something that is, we know what we're doing with the food. As I said, we weigh and measure our food without exception off the GreySheet. We don't have people qualify at our meetings who are doing something different than what we're doing. We're very focused in our meetings. I really believe that I know that's the reason that I've stayed abstinent a day at a time. And so, but there would be times when there would be, I went to a meeting in Boston. It was a noon meeting in downtown, and we would have people coming in from other, from OA. Fine, please, you're welcome. But then they would start to criticize what we were doing, and they wanted to change our format. And so we had to have a business meeting to say, no, this is what we do. We are a GreySheet meeting. Here's what here's what our definition of abstinence is. And, we're really glad you're here, but we don't want to hear about other food plans here. This is what we do to stay abstinent. And those are the meetings that I go to today. And those are the meetings that I've gone to a day at a time over the years. And the meetings that don't have an emphasis on that, I don't go to those meetings, because abstinence has to be the most important thing in my life. And I have to be hearing stories from people who are, have the same problem as me, in one way or the other, couldn't stop eating, couldn't manage their lives around food, and who came to GreySheet and got abstinent. And here's what it's like now, and here's what I do with my food. So I'm so grateful that when I did come into those rooms in 1981, as I say, it was a very strong and clear message. So you can't stop eating. You're an alcoholic with food. Here's what you need to do. You get a sponsor, and the sponsor will tell you what to do with this GreySheet, how much to measure of this, how much to measure of that. It was a very simple, straightforward message. So I didn't have to figure out anything else in my life. In fact, I was told, you know what, you can talk about your problems with other people, maybe, outside the meetings, whatever. What we're focused on here is the food and how we stay sober with the food. And so I am so grateful for that, because honestly, I didn't really do I've done a few formal steps, 12 steps. I've worked them. It was maybe about 10 years ago that I really did a very formal one. And, I've stayed abstinent despite not having done past step 3 for many years. People do it differently. But all I'm trying to say is that for me, it was really important to focus on the food. We are not AA in the sense that we can't just stop eating, although probably I often thought that was an answer for me. If I could just didn't have to eat anything, if I could just not eat at all, then I could figure this out. And so, as I said, GreySheet gives us the building block. Here we go. This is exactly what we do. And it takes practice. And staying abstinent a day at a time takes focus. It takes a vigorous and positive attitude. It takes a lot of reliance on other people, on a higher power, working through other people, a lot of meetings. And I really needed that focus in order to stay abstinent. I had already tried doing the steps. That didn't work for me. So all I can say is that I probably had a lot of misery, and I didn't, I had a lot of growing up to do. And my husband can tell you that, by the way. I've had a lot of growing up to do. And this program is beautiful. 12 steps have helped me really to increase my relationships with other people, and with my higher power, and it's given me a much more peace of mind in my life. But they haven't helped me to stay abstinent. What helps me to stay abstinent is to work steps 1 through 3, which is every day to weigh and measure, put my food on the scale without exception. And so what else did I want to say about the history? Nothing else is coming to mind right now. All I can say is that I learned a way of life, and that it was a lot of people. We would go out to lunch together. We'd go out for coffee together, spent a lot of time interacting with other GreySheeters who were abstinent and stuck with the winners. And at that point, I think when I came in, the longest abstinence anybody had was about 5 years. And today there are probably, I'm going to guess maybe 10 or 15 of those original people who are still abstinent. And so we're talking about, you know, in the 30 to 45 year range. I think there's someone now who's got 47 years of back-to-back GreySheet abstinence. So it really, really works. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm a hopeless compulsive eater. I'm completely hopeless. And I started to get, you know, involved with what GSA was doing once it had gone. There was a woman who was abstinent in Cambridge who in the early 80s moved to New York City, and she got the GreySheet program from Cambridge started there. They started to have, you know, these roundups. I started to go to those. I started as you know, time went on, and especially after I moved for the first time in 2006, I became aware of the broader program. I understood that there was a GreySheeters Anonymous and that we were separate from Overeaters Anonymous. And the reason that I became aware of that is because for the first time in my abstinence, I was 24 years abstinent, I was going to be moving away from meetings. And I found out about the phone bridge and the GreySheeters Anonymous phone bridge. And that has helped me to stay abstinent now for, I don't know, 17 years. And I'm very involved with the phone bridge now and doing service. So I just came back from 2 weeks in, I spent a week in France, and actually more than a week in France, and about 4 days in Amsterdam. And I had never done anything like that in my abstinence. Only once had I been, you know, overseas, and that was in an English-speaking country in England. And I was there for about 5 days, and it was just one place, and met some GreySheeters and who helped me with my food and helped me find some food that I needed. So I'll put my information in the chat, and thank you everybody who organized this. This is just, you know, spreading the message. It's just, this is what we do. I don't eat no matter what. Thank you so much.